There are moments in life that can truly have an impact on who you are and how you see yourself. How you see yourself is the most important thing here, I think, at least in altering the way that you see yourself, or altering the way that you see what you are capable of. Right? I'm a big believer in what I call adjustable potential, i.e. that's potential that you can expand or contract, that expands or contracts depending on your thoughts and your actions. It's my version of karma, right? You are where you are because of what you've done in the past, but you can change that potential. That's why I call it adjustable. You can change what you're capable of doing in the future by what you do now. So in line with a potential that you can change, these are moments that I'm talking about that can become a catalyst for massive change. These events may seem simple or even insignificant in the moment, but they do open the door to self-reflection, to re-evaluation, all about how you're living. And even when you open these doors, just a tiny crack, even though you can only see a small chink of light, that tiny sliver of light can be enough to at least give you a glimpse of some other possibility, a possibility of you doing things in a different way. And that's so bloody powerful. And often that's all you need is just a little bit of help, a little bit of hope, a little bit of encouragement. And these moments can lead us down the path of complete change, really redefining our roles in life and kind of sparkling an internal revolution, right? An internal evolution. And what's fascinating about these events is how they're often triggered by what in the moment, as I said, can seem extremely trivial. I mean, like, a normal run of the mill event, something that happens all the time, that may have happened countless times before, but whatever it is that's happening in your brain in that moment, whatever the thought connections that are being made in your brain at that moment, whatever chemical reactions are happening across your synapses in that moment, it's enough to trigger the beginning of a thought process that results in a massive change in your life. And it's often only years later, in retrospect, that you start to make these connections, that you can see what happened, that you connect the trigger and the immensity of those changes that have happened over those years because you were fired up in a certain way. Or it's only when you see how massively your life has changed and how your thinking has changed and how your acting has changed. And when you can trace that all the way back to that one triggering event, life can be absolutely breathtaking at times. So the key here is that you never know where change is going to come from. Any moment of your life, any thought that you ever have, any event that you ever participate in, any one single thing, regardless of how small, has the potential to flick a mental switch within your brain, ignite a whirlwind, if you like, and give you kind of a real desire for change and growth. In my life, I've had two such life-changing events. The first was when my son was born. As you can imagine, or if you're a parent, you don't need to imagine, this is a pretty momentous occasion. This was one of the most beautiful, miraculous things that have ever happened in my life. This little person arriving in my life. Well, he really opened my eyes to a world that was beyond myself. And out of nowhere and seemingly overnight, it was like I'd arrived at being an adult, at being a man. And that's an immense responsibility. Although I didn't know exactly what it was to become a parent at that moment, all the trials and tribulations, all the great times and the bad times that were to follow, I knew for the first time in my life what total commitment was. I knew for the first time in my life what it was to really love another person unconditionally, right? And it's still, I think, the most amazing feeling that I've ever felt in my life. And I realized that I was no longer just living for myself, but for this tiny, innocent little fella who was completely reliant on me for everything, right? So the second life-changing event happened when I stopped drinking alcohol. And for years, alcohol had really defined me as a person. It clouded my judgment. I had allowed my drinking behavior to heavily influence my thoughts, my choices, my decisions. And when I made the choice to leave alcohol behind me, I was finally able to see the world through clear eyes. And it's not a coincidence to me that those two life-changing events were connected in such a deep way. I'd moved to Spain the year before, and my son was living in Ireland, and he was on his third visit from Ireland to Spain that year. It was almost New Year, 2012, and we'd both gotten drunk the night before. And that morning, I sat on the balcony of our apartment building, and I was watching him pacing backwards and forwards on the beach, looking for this iPod that he dropped out of his pocket the night before when we were drunk, making our way home from the pub, right? So that was the moment when I knew I had to change. Just something sparked. It was a really simple trigger, right? A simple moment that sparked this complete change in the way that I looked at myself. I didn't know it at the time, and it was a gradual process. It changed how I looked at myself as a dad, and eventually how I looked at how I was living my life in general. These two events sparked an internal shake-up which has really made me into a different person. It's pushed me onto this road of becoming a better version of myself, and it's absolutely fantastic. Like I said, not because I started living this life of sunshine and roses, but because I started living a life which was full of direction and meaning. Once you've got that, once you have that in your life, the discomfort of change doesn't matter anymore. It becomes sort of enjoyable. When you give a person a reason why to do anything, he can put up with anything that you can throw in his way. So when we embrace these moments, we open ourselves up to really incredible possibilities that life has to offer. I stopped drinking alcohol. It wasn't just about the end of an old life for me. And that's one of the most scary things about big change. You instinctively know that your life is never going to be the same again. It's the end of things. The end of things as you understand them. It's the end of you as you understand yourself. And that's where the fear of the unknown happens. That's where a lot of the fear is attached, why people procrastinate so much. You don't know what's in store. The decision to stop putting this poison into my body was the beginning of something brand new for me, and something way better than anything that I thought was possible. I'd spent so much of my life under the influence, not of the alcohol, but of my own faulty ideas and beliefs about the alcohol, right? And that's one of the saddest parts. You can have one behavior that utterly, totally blinds you to so much more that's going on in your life, or that's possible. And the worst thing was, these weren't even my ideas. These alcohol drinking ideas were bad ideas that I'd adopted for myself without very much thought into the consequences at all, into the consequences of what was going to happen. And they were beliefs that I had happily absorbed into who I thought I was, and beliefs that had kept a hold of me for over 30 years. Too many years. And stopping that one thing ended up being the launch pad that really sent me on a journey into loads of places that I never thought I would go. What I'm trying to say to you is that stopping drinking alcohol is not the end of anything, except that one thing, except a load of shit in your life, right? It's the beginning of everything else, and the beginning is always today. Every day you have a fresh start. So don't procrastinate, get on with it. If you haven't taken our free beginner's guide to getting sober yet, you can have that now. We still have it on offer for free. It's down below in the comment section. Take care of yourself, and I will speak to you again soon. Onwards and upwards. Bye now.